We had a huge Republican field. All of a sudden, it's a lot smaller. Over the last 3 days, a couple of guys getting knocked out. Now, last week on this show, we were focusing on 6 potential GOP hopefuls. You see them there: Daniels, Gingrich, Huckabee, Pawlenty, Romney, and Trump. This weekend, Mike Huckabee announced he's not running. Down goes Huckabee. Down goes Huckabee. So he is out. And then, even more dramatic news today, this time from Donald Trump.
I've decided that we are going to continue onward with Celebrity Apprentice. We're going to continue making lots and lots of money for charity. I will not be running for president as much as I'd like to.
Down goes Trump. Down goes Trump. Who announces that they're not running for president anymore by saying, I will continue with Celebrity Apprentice, my reality show? What a goofball. But you know what, Donald? You gave us some memories, man. It was quite a ride, and we want to thank you for those memories.
Memories like the corners of my mind.
3 weeks ago when I started, I thought he was probably born in this country, and now I really have a much bigger doubt than I did before. Everybody says, oh, gee, what a great salesman he is. It's this. It's not my salesmanship.
It's what?
This, you know what that is? It's the brain power.
You were paid $2 million a year.
Excuse me, I didn't run the company. I'm just telling you.
So what were you paid $2 million a year for?
Excuse me, because of my genius, okay?
Misty watercolor memories.
Why doesn't he show his birth certificate? I heard he was a terrible student. Terrible. He went to Occidental. I heard he was a terrible student. Not like, okay, I heard he was a bad student. How does a bad student then go to Columbia and then go to Harvard?
If it comes to racism and racist, I am the least racist person there is. In fact, Randall Pinkett won on the, as you know, on The Apprentice a little while ago, a couple of years ago, and Randall's been outstanding in every way. So, I mean, I am the least racist person.
Of the way we were.
Ah, Donald, we're going to miss you, big guy. Who's going to bring the clown antics now? Well, it is the Republicans, so you never know. Somebody will step up to the plate. But look, these are 2 big contenders that just got knocked out or knocked themselves out. So why? Well, here's my theory. Ironically, it turns out Huckabee was too rich to run, and Donald Trump wasn't rich enough. Why? Let me explain. Look, Huckabee apparently liked the good life. He was collecting Fox paychecks. He was making lucrative speeches. He had books, and he was building big homes in Florida. He didn't want to give that all up to go and run and take a risk, and then he'd have to give up a lot of that salary. He literally got, apparently, fat and lazy. I mean, look, that's not just me saying. We had his former campaign manager saying that he had put on some weight and didn't want to go through losing 30 or 40 pounds. We showed you that on Friday. Now, Trump, on the other hand, had no intention of running in the first place because, look, in the end, he would have had to reveal his finances. And the guy is full of it. He doesn't have all the money he claims he has. We've shown you over and over. When he was actually on the record during a deposition, he says, well, you know, maybe I had $3 or $5 billion less than I claimed. $3 or $5 billion less. He was never going to tell us how much money he has because he doesn't have that much. So he couldn't stand the heat, and he got the hell out of the kitchen. But Obama did eventually, of course, share his birth certificate to make Trump look even more foolish, and he became even a bigger national joke, and that had a huge part in it as well. Look at how much of a national laughingstock he became, Trump did, at the White House Correspondents' Dinner.
Just recently, in an episode of Celebrity Apprentice, at the steakhouse, the men's cooking team did not impress the judges from Omaha Steaks. You, Mr. Trump, recognized that the real problem was a lack of leadership, and so ultimately you didn't blame Little John or Meatloaf. You fired Gary Busey. And these are the kind of decisions that would keep me up at night.
Donald Trump has been saying that he will run for president as a Republican, which is surprising since I just assumed he was running as a joke. Donald Trump often appears on Fox, which is ironic because a fox often appears on Donald Trump's head.
Oh, that hurt the big guy. such humiliation, and he couldn't take that much longer. And on top of all that, Obama then made a decision that showcased the difference between what Trump does and what a commander-in-chief does. He went forward with the operation to get Osama bin Laden, and that literally interrupted Trump's TV show with the announcement. Watch this.
This question, who going forward do you want on your team? Because you're facing a very tough men's team plus Latoya.
I definitely.
This is an NBC News special report.
Good evening from Washington. I'm David Gregory. We will hear from the President of the United States. He will address the country in mere moments now to announce a major development, we are told by senior government officials, concerning the most wanted terrorist in the world, Osama bin Laden.
I love that clip. I love it every time. Whereas Trump is trying to figure out whether he should fire LaToya Jackson or not, Obama was making decisions on how we get bin Laden, and in fact, he did get him. Oh, that's just embarrassing. And look, at the end of all this, Trump realized he was hurting his brand. It was no longer associated with being rich. It was now associated with being a big doofus. So he tucked his tail between his legs and ran for the hills, exactly as we told you he would. All right, now with me is MSNBC political analyst Jonathan Alter. Steve Kornacki is from Salon.com. He also joins us. And syndicated columnist Tony Blankley is here for an important perspective as well. Welcome to all of you. I'm going to start with you, Jonathan, but first I want to show you a set of clips from Donald Trump telling us how serious he was about running. Let's watch that first.
I've been asked for years to do it, and I had no interest. This is the first time at least I'm considering it. That doesn't say I'm going to do it, Gretchen, but I am seriously considering it.
I am seriously considering running.
I am seriously considering it.
Well, this is very serious. I mean, I always take things seriously, but I've never taken it seriously like this. But I will tell you, I am giving it serious thought.
So was he serious ever, or was this all a big put on? What do you think, Jonathan?
Well, I'm not going to pretend to be an expert on what happens beneath that fox on the top of his head. You know, I really can't tell you whether in his own mind he was serious. All I can do is go to history, and in both 1988 and in 2000, he finked out. He did the same thing. So I think on some level he was never that serious. I don't think, given the size of his ego, that he anticipated that he would be attacked with the vigor that he was. He was so used to dishing it out that when he really started to take it, I think it sort of threw him for a loss. You could see the expression on his face at the White House Correspondents' Dinner. He had just never been subjected to that before, especially at the hands of a president of the United States. So he got more than he bargained for. He knew that if he did get in, it would get even worse, that there would be intense pressure for him to reveal his tax returns, which would show that he doesn't own any of the buildings that have his name on. And, and in some ways, he's a fraud. So, I think that it all added up to his not running, and I wasn't surprised when he made the decision.
Right. Tony, it's an embarrassment for Trump, obviously, but is it also an embarrassment for the Republican Party? Because let me just show you two polls from last month. At the Quinnipiac poll, he came in fairly strong at 12%. There he was fourth. In the NBC poll, he came in second at 17%. And you saw many different polls where he was in the top two. So was that also a bit of an embarrassment for the Republican Party that this clown was near the top?
Well, when he was at the top of the polls, I said he was a spring boomlet and would not be the candidate and would not be running, and I think it was pretty obvious. Look, I think this election, both at the primary and the general election, is going to be decided by which candidates and which parties effectively are able to deal with the economy and deficits and debt. Neither party seems to me, and none of the candidates have yet given a persuasive case as to why the country should rely on them to deal with those issues. And the reason those issues are going to be defining is that what the public cares about. So we've got a lot of churning going on right now, but things are going to start getting serious as the candidates, including the incumbent, begin to try to deal with those issues either effectively or ineffectively.
All right, Steve, look, we had Huckabee dropping out, and I thought Huckabee had a real shot, not just because he polled in the top two in almost every single poll, but he had a populist message. He could have won Iowa. He could have won South Carolina. That was a bit shocking that he dropped out. But with him dropping out and Trump dropping out, doesn't that basically leave Mitt Romney? Isn't he in heaven at this point?
Well, I mean, with Huckabee dropping out, like you said with Trump, there was really no chance this guy was ever going to run. Whether it was a put up job by him in the first place, or if it was just going to be the Republicans kind of driving him out of the race, which is what we really started to see in the last few weeks. But when you look at where the race stands right now, I think realistically there are 3 Republicans who are in the mix who have a chance of winning the nomination: Mitt Romney, Tim Pawlenty, and if he runs, Mitch Daniels. I might also include John Huntsman in that mix if he could somehow gain traction. And you look at this field now and you say, maybe there is a scenario where some of the sort of elites in the Republican Party, the opinion shapers, the commentators, the activists, maybe they start to look at John Huntsman just because they have so few other options right now. But this is why I've been saying for the last few weeks, when there's sort of a pile-on on Mitt Romney in the media and even on the conservative side saying he can't win because of health care, this is why I'd still put my money on Mitt Romney to be the nominee next year, because I think when you get to October, November, December, the Republicans take a look around. They don't have many choices. They know Romney's, sort of generic enough that he can win if the economy, works in the Republicans' favor in 2012. And I think that's when you start hearing the excuses, and that's when you start hearing the rationalizations for his health care problem. And you'll hear it from the Republicans, the same Republicans who were willing to overlook John McCain on immigration 4 years ago and all of his other sort of sins against the conservative movement. I think they'll be with Romney in the end. That's what I would bet right now.
Well, Tony, he didn't mention Gingrich on that list. I know you worked with Gingrich, obviously. Yeah. Do you think Gingrich has a real shot? I mean, he's flip-flopped almost as much as Romney, and he's... getting a little embarrassing now in all the different ways that he's contradicted himself.
Well, Senator Obama, when he was running for president, was against the individual mandate, and Hillary was for it. So, if you're trying to find perfect consistency, Newt's probably closer, because in 1993, he was for, by the way, I believe, a state. He compared it to car insurance. And there's a constitutional point here. I was working for Newt in 93. The constitutional point is that states have the power through their police power to require insurance, as they do in car. But the question being litigated is whether the federal government, through the Interstate Commerce Clause, can impose that on the state. So I think that issue is for Republicans, at least, and conservatives, a big constitutional issue. But the question ultimately is going to be whether how do we deal with providing basic health care for Americans in a constitutional manner, and one that fits the economy, the deficit,
Tony,
and the debt capacity we have.
Tony, I honestly don't even know what Newt's position is. He's changed it literally so many times.
Actually,
I literally can't keep up. Do you know what it is? Is he for the mandate or against the mandate? It probably depends on the hour, but right now, do you have any idea what it is?
Yeah, I know, because he said it in 1993, and he said it again last weekend, and that he's in favor of something like a state insurance policy, which is a state-imposed, not a federally imposed. That's why, if you remember this morning, when he went out to do the interview, he said he was against, for constitutional reasons, a federally imposed. This is, I understand that a lot of liberals don't care about it, but for conservatives, we care about that distinction.
Because Romney and Gingrich are both using this excuse. Oh, I love it at the individual level. It's like the world's greatest thing. But if you applied it a little broader, then it would be disastrous. Is anybody buying that?
I don't think so, and I think the advantage goes to Huntsman. Huntsman has a healthcare record in Utah that will look very good when people start to learn about it. It's basically a privatized system. And Huntsman also benefits from Huckabee's departure, because Huckabee was the most likable candidate in the race. Likability is critical. Likable, Newt Gingrich is not.
Like Richard Nixon?
Huntsman is pretty likable. Now, he's just getting his toe in the water. He's just off the plane from China, and we don't know how he's going to fare, but I would not count him out. And I know people say, well, he worked for Obama. He was ambassador to China under Obama, but he was also an ambassador under Republican administrations.
Likability is one element, but people get elected president like Nixon without being overly likable. The question is going to be, I think, which candidate in either party convinces the public he can deal with the problems that we're facing. We've got huge problems, and likability is not going to be the only element.
All right, I got to ask Steve one last question here, but Tony, you're not doing Newt Gingrich any favors by comparing him to Richard Nixon. That's my take on it. But Steve, I got to ask you, who's the biggest winner here?
I'm trying to analyze the components that go into a winning candidate.
All right, well, Richard Nixon never had to run in the primaries like Newt Gingrich is.
And also, Richard
Nixon got lucky because George Romney stepped in on
an hourly basis. And Dick and Pat got along a lot better than Newt.
You got to understand the issues. I got to ask Steve one last quick question here. Who's the biggest winner? Is it Romney or is it the president? Given that we just saw a poll where the president is beating Romney fairly significantly, 51-38. So who's the biggest winner here, Steve?
No, to be fair, I'd say it's Romney. Totally disregard the polls right now, the head-to-head Obama versus, likely Republican nominee polls. You would have had the same thing, 20 years ago with George H.W. Bush beating every Democrat at this time. Nobody would have had Bill Clinton winning. The point is, it's going to be about the economy, where the economy stands in the fall of 2012. If it's bad, and the Republicans put up a credible candidate, by that I mean Daniels, Pawlenty, Romney, maybe Huntsman, Republicans win. If it's bad and the Republicans put up Newt Gingrich, Obama might still win, but they won't put up Newt Gingrich.
Why do you think Huntsman is a credible candidate? He's at 0 or 1% of the polls.
Because nobody knows who he is. He has the potential. He has the potential, unlike Newt. He has the potential, unlike Newt Gingrich, to appeal to swing voters.
You've basically in the eyes of liberal Democrats.
Lovely, but we gotta go. Okay. I love the conversation. I could have that conversation for an hour straight. But I want to thank all of you guys on the panel: Steve Kornacki, Jonathan Alter, and Tony Blankley. Tony, thanks for the fight. We appreciate it.
My pleasure.